people, I have many people that I can mobilize to go there. When we receive a threat, it can bring a step back among my colleagues. When we receive that threat and some step back, in what way can you advise the youth so that they will have another courage, they will have another like zeal for them to go again? And
all right, thank you very much, President. So, Barrister, you have been an overwhelming number of questions, I'm sure, and but we're excited and enthusiastic and optimistic to hear the responses of these million questions asked by our participants. So, Barrister, I'm going to start with you, then we'll keep cycling and responding to the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe question number one is not for me. Who asked question number one?
The first question was
I said that what
because I didn't come to the question number one.
processes.
Yeah.
Like I should just walk into a local government and just ask for information. Yeah, engineer, please respond to that. What she's seeking information, information, and what are the processes involved in getting this information?
Okay, so first of all, Hafsat, I think the first thing, we have been talking about accountability and civic duty. I think we have focused more on the accountability and authority aspect, and maybe have left the civic duty in the background a lot for today's discussion. So there are processes, and I think Barrister has highlighted the processes, but I think the processes, what is more important is the compliance, right? So you cannot demand good governance until you are a good citizen. And let me start from this. When you want to go into any government institution to demand information, as you said, there are the processes, but there are also qualifying characters that you need as a person to be able to get those information. One, of course, you need to be a citizen of Nigeria, right? And a citizen that can be verified. So I think the first question you need to ask yourself, do you have your NIN? I know there's been a lot of trouble with a lot of people. It pushed for people to go and enroll and register for the NIN. So many people have been resistant. So are you one of those people? Having an NIN is a civic duty. It's an obligation as a citizen for you to be identified, because one, you are identified by the government for the benefit of everyone, so you don't become a security threat, and two, for your own benefit, you are identified so that government dividends can also come to you. So are you identified? Do you have your NIN? Then moving forward, you of course go there formally. You write to the authorities that this is my identification, this is my address, this is the person I am addressing this letter to, this is what I am looking for as an information, and these are the prayers I hope that this letter extracts for me. So when you fulfill all these processes as a good citizen, fulfilling all your identification obligations, then I think there is a mandate for them to comply to your requests. I would like to rope this into the second question, I think asked by Abdurrahman, where he says, Abdurrahman, right? Where you say sometimes when you advocate, when you ask questions, you are tagged a troublemaker. Absolutely. When you ask so many questions, especially in the government case, you are easily tagged a troublemaker. But being tagged a troublemaker is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a badge of honor for a citizen, because you can be a troublemaker who is compliant with the law. When you, for example, when you have such submits her letter, maybe they can, the bureaucracy, maybe they can shove the letter under the carpet and not address it. But tomorrow Hafsat returns with the same letter. The third day she returns with the same letter because she hasn't received a response. She keeps doing this for say 2 months. Every day she returns with the same letter. I bet you someone will finally give you an attention. There will be a breaking point. They will say you are a troublemaker by doing that, by being consistent, but that troublemaking within the bounds of the law will get you what you want at some point. So I think being tagged a troublemaker in and of itself is not always a bad thing when you are doing that trouble in quote within the bounds of the law.
We have Showway, for
Exactly.
example.
Exactly. So then there is the person who asked about education, right? And personally, this is a very sensitive one for me. I'm a very passionate person when it comes to what role education has to play in the development of this country. I believe it has the greatest role to play in the development, right? And I am very strongly opinionated about the fact that education, in addition to poverty and hunger, are being weaponized by the leadership of this country for generations. Because when you are not educated, how do you even understand your situation? How do you even know what you are going through and how to address it? How do you even know how to strive for something better? So I believe the leaders know this, and they are deliberately depriving us of quality education, or sometimes even access to education, because I think as of the most recent statistics I have seen, we have over 20 million out of school children in this country. So that is a dangerous number. So I believe the leaders are deliberately doing this because they don't want us to have that consciousness to know what we have, what we deserve from them, and also demand for better. When you talk about hunger and poverty, I believe it's also being weaponized very, very deliberately. A hungry man only thinks about food. So most of the people you meet, especially in the recent time, the biggest concern is the next meal. The biggest concern is food. So when all you're thinking is food, how do you now start thinking about tech? How do you start thinking about AI? How do you start thinking about agriculture? No, the immediate need is food, and the immediate need that is food is inevitable, that you cannot escape from. The moment you get the next meal, the worry starts coming up for what the next meal is going to be. So these two things, I believe, are being weaponized. And, well, one way or the other, we have to be aggressive about the demands for these things, especially education and eradication of poverty, by being very active. This comes back to also the activeness of our engagement in who becomes our lawyer, especially of our leader, especially at that level of government, the local government level that affects us the most directly. Then I will now rope this into Muzammil's comments. He talked about, in terms of education and the selection, and also the kind of leaders and the role we play in the advocacy. I very much agree with you, Muzammil. My comments were not entirely saying the young people, because the systems are bad, the young people should have excuses to stay away. No. What I was saying is, when these conversations are had, most of the time, the young people are blamed, right, for not sustaining effort in these advocacies, these causes. They are blamed for being inconsistent, right? So what I'm saying is, I don't think the blame is on young people. I think the blame partly is on the system that has created a mistrust of itself in the minds of the youth. But regardless, the young people have a responsibility to rise above that mistrust. Yes, we know that it's frustrating, that you want to see something that should be done, but it's not done. But you have to rise above the frustration and strive for better. You have to fight for it, right? Of course, always, when I use these words, always know that you fight within the bounds of the law, right? You become an activist for it, but still within the bounds of the law. So you go to as much extent as possible, but always do it within the bounds of the law. I think there was a question, there was a comment you made particularly that you wanted me to,
The part where he said we have to, like, 1 to 10, and then we also have to keep up the energy. We can't just not just relax and just see things that are going on, and then mobilize and go back to the rural areas, inform people.
Absolutely. So during our little chats with you guys, when we had a very few people here, right, before the event started. I think I was making a similar comment where I said we're expecting only about 25 people here. And Justice Cafe is not a castle-based organization. We are here to do an event today, we are going to leave. But you guys are domiciled in Castle permanently, and you are just 25. So basically, you're going to be ambassadors for the cause that we are here propagating. When we leave, we don't expect this conversation to end. We expect that each and every one of you, and that was where I was emphasizing on networking. I was telling them that they had to network.
Yeah.
That was what we were doing before the event started. Network, make sure that this gathering today has become a single cell that will promote these courses on civic duty, on chasing accountability. Make sure that you have roped in everyone in your network. Start with one person, rise to 2 people, go to 10, and go beyond, and make sure that everyone you rope in understands that roping in should not end with them. It should be a chain that should extend to as much and as widely as possible, right? So that is the only way we get to achieve these things. Then, on Khadija, I think Khadija asked a question about bias. Women, the struggle of women, and how women can participate. I understand, especially in the conservative northern Nigeria, right? But Khadija, you are here, you have heard these conversations. And even though women most of the time are at home, tending to the home, a very noble endeavor, but we have a lot of women like you who come to places like this, who are in school, who work, who are in the civic spaces, who are part of civic engagement and conversations. So let me tell you what just came to my mind when you asked of ways to propagate these things. And I know women talk a lot. So you have the Kidenkiso. If you are thinking of a forum, you have the Kidenkiso. You just need a common ground for people to be interested in the conversations you create. There is a very popular comedy video I have seen some time ago of a woman in a bus, and the tag of the video was how to start, the easiest way to start a conversation now in public in Nigeria. And the woman just uttered Tulungu, and that was everyone was part of the conversation. Everyone was ranting to the extent that you just didn't know what anyone was saying. So you need to, when you go to your Kidenkiso, for example, you know the concerns. Maybe you have creams you use for your kiso. I am sure they are very expensive now, more expensive than they were some time ago. So create conversations around that. Everyone is interested in that. Even though Inkiso is more expensive, I'm sure. So create a conversation on that, right? You know everyone in that house, Inkiso will be interested. Create a conversation on that. Make people interested. Maybe when they are more interested and now center that you are a center of conversation around that, then you can start bringing in more topical issues, more sensitive issues like healthcare, like infrastructure, like local government administration. You have the salons, you have your group chats. I know now women are in the business of, you see, maybe in an area and where you will have a women group. So all those places are platforms that you can initiate these conversations, and as women, you can participate. As I said, not everyone needs to be on the street. Not everyone needs to be on social media. Find out what works for everyone and make them do it. You are in this, you can always attend civic conversations, civic engagement. Come, get the information, take it back to them. Identify people among them who can also come, bring them along the next time. If you want to go and submit a letter, you know Hafsat is interested, find her, take her along, submit a letter. If you want to, even if it comes to the point of protesting, peaceful protesting, identify people who can be allowed to participate in that, bring them along, find partners, find the media, make sure you are heard, make sure you are seen, and make sure the cause you are promoting is very much recognized. Then, Mala Noura asked on the challenges of youth, particularly challenges in rising through the systems of governance and whatnot, entirely mad the challenges of youth in our country. So I think the biggest challenge is every young person will tell you who finds himself in these spaces is that you are always seen as less. You are always seen as small. Right? The first instinct is he's too young. What is he even here for in the first place? I remember I was once invited to a very high-powered meeting. Even I thought I wouldn't be there, but I was invited. And there was a person who worked directly to me. He was moderating the whole meeting. He walked to where I was seated, and the first question was, who are you? Why are you in this room? The tone directly showed that I was going to be walked out of the meeting. But then someone intervened and let that person know that the one who convened the meeting was the one who invited me. And when the meeting went on, I think he saw the reason why I was invited to the meeting. So as a young person, you always face these challenges. You always be thrown these questions at, why are you here, where there are people who are 70 years old, right, and you're just 25, 23, 30, and you're there sitting on the same table. Yes, you will face those challenges, but those challenges, as Muzammil has said, should not be excuses. You should keep striving, because the cause you are going for is greater than yourselves, it's greater than your sensitivity, it's greater than your emotion. It's something that is a bigger picture that will potentially affect everyone in your society. So keep going, overcome the discomfort, answer the questions, face them, answer them, and ultimately, if you have the quality that has brought you initially to the place, to the table, you'll prove it, and everyone will be forced to accept your being there, and your presence, and what you have to contribute as a young person. Then Benjamin asked on transparency, right? So, of course, in most cases, the first instinct of government should be transparency. But because we have so many shady things going on in governments, right? So people will always try to, even in places where it is established that there is transparency, that there is the open governance policies accepted and implemented, you always have effort. There are no perfect systems. You always have efforts by some people to cover up, to shield information, especially when there are shady things happening, right? So when you have these things, identify them. Seek for better. As I said, be consistent, be very consistent in doing that. If you identify any lapse in information, follow the relevant channel, follow the legal means. If you don't get a response on the first time, try it another time. Try it another time until you force them to respond to whatever you are getting at. Then the zero asked on reporting, right? Do you remember
President, no, I don't think I
If you have the information,
okay, yes, true.
the problems,
the information?
Yeah, that is not information, but what they there. So who are issues with the information? Like, what is the proper channel or proper one to follow to verify or to submit?
Okay, so that is one benefit of social media again, right? Yes, I think Benjamin also asked something similar in terms of when you see a discrepancy, how do you go about it, especially as an individual. Now this comes back to the zero. Okay, as an individual, you have seen a discrepancy, but when you pursue it, you are at the risk of being targeted, which we have seen so many times, right? So you have social media work, you have an account, right? And you have people like Mbello who are very, very eager to find these kind of things. Maybe you are not as influential, but you have these kind of people. Please find a way to reach out to them. Make them propagate what you have. make sure it gets to the media. Muzamil, you raised the point that social media may not be so effective alone. Yes, I quite agree with you, and that was why I said some people should be on the ground, some people should be on social media. But social media is very powerful. I remember at the inception of this government, after the removal of fuel subsidy, one of the first mitigating measures they introduced, very ridiculous measure, very unreasonable measure in fact, was that they were going to be giving people 8,000 naira monthly. Very ridiculous. Yes. So nobody protested on the streets. Nobody protested. But on social media, everyone was crying about it. Everyone was giving them fire for fire. Don't think these people don't see what is happening on social media. They see it. If they don't see it directly, they have people who do see it. And they are always skeptical too. And they are very sensitive to what that social media advocacy and campaign can turn into physically in reality. So please do the social media